There are no bad exercises in the gym. And that might surprise you to hear, and I see some of you already run into the comment section like, actually, preacher curls are really bad because I saw this big juiced up guy on Instagram tear a bicep doing them. But in this video, I'm going to tell you why you might actually benefit from doing some of those bad exercises and why you might be holding back your progress in the gym by avoiding them. If you would like me to design your training program for you based on my experience coaching hundreds of people, including national level powerlifters, top link in the description to hire me as your personal strength coach, or a second link if you just want some tried and tested strength training programs. So let's get straight into it. What do I mean by there are no bad exercises in the gym? And pretty much exactly that. There are no good or bad exercises in the gym. None of them are uniquely bad. Think about it. All these exercises we do in the gym, they're just made up. We literally made all of them up. Like, why did we decide that the barbell squat needs to be with the bar on the back? Why do we need to squat to this arbitrary depth? Why is the bench press done and we have to touch the chest? Why do we do the deadlift and why are the plates that high, for example? They're all just made up. There are no bad exercises in the gym. Sure, there are some more effective and less effective exercises in the gym, but they're all just tools for different goals. We don't need to complicate this stuff and say, I'm not doing those because they're bad, I'm doing those because they're good. This is a stupid mindset to have, and it's probably holding you back in the gym. But let's discuss some of the more commonly feared exercises, like the ones that I see a lot of people in the comment section say are bad exercises. So the top one I probably see discussed the most often is the preacher curl. And usually when people say preacher curl, it's done on the preacher bench with dumbbells or an easy curl bar or something like that. And yes, we've all seen the videos. There are tons of videos where guys are tearing biceps doing preacher curls, and you see the bicep will shrivel up as it tears or whatever. But let me refute this argument. If you did preacher curls with the empty bar or a really light dumbbell, would they be dangerous? No. So it's not the exercise, is it? It's these jackasses loading up way too much weight, probably using performance enhancing drugs, so they're progressing way more quickly than they otherwise would, and the connective tissues and the tendons, ligaments aren't keeping up with the muscle growth. They're just starting way too heavy, way too quickly. Watch most of these guys, they're training like absolute morons. If you don't train that way, you're probably not going to tear your bicep doing preacher curls. I've done this movement for years. I have a bunch of clients who do them. The most important thing is that you start light and you progress slow. Your body will adapt to the demands you place upon it. Yes, if you go in the gym tomorrow, you jump on a preacher curl bench, you've never done preacher curls before, and you grab 40 kilo dumbbells and go down, yes, you're probably going to tear a bicep. Does that mean that the preacher curl is a bad exercise? No, it means you're a jackass. Go in the gym, start with an appropriate weight for an appropriate amount of volume. So start light and then just progress slowly. Slowly add load, slowly add volume, and you will be perfectly fine. And I could make the argument that by skipping out on all these exercises and never doing preacher curls and stuff like that, you're probably just restricting yourself. You're confining your base of movements available to you. You're probably hindering your range of motion as well because you're never exposing yourself to these positions. We'll go into that a little bit more afterwards. But no, preacher curls are not inherently dangerous. The next one that people love to talk about is the mixed grip deadlift. So where you have palm supinated on one hand, pronated on the other. And people love to talk about mixed grip deadlifts. And again, there's a bunch of videos out there on people tearing the biceps. And I'll say I'm personally not a huge fan of the mixed grip for myself. I do a hook grip instead. But the reason is just mixed grip feels a bit uncomfortable for me. It feels like I'm twisted. It feels like I can't set my back in extension. But I would never say the mixed grip is dangerous because, again, if we start light, we progress slowly, it's perfectly fine. Your body's going to adapt to the demands you place on it. And people love to use the argument of, oh, what about imbalances? I'm going to have an imbalanced lat side to side, or one bicep stronger than the other, or something like that. And if you want to use that argument, it's ignoring the fact that all of you, including you watching this video, are imbalanced by design. Your entire body is imbalanced. Some muscle groups are stronger than others by design. You are right-handed or left-handed by design. You brush your teeth with one hand and not the other by design. Some organs are on one side versus the other by design. And if you really wanted to balance all that out and be perfectly balanced, you'd spend your entire life doing it and you'd never lift heavy again. We're all imbalanced. It's just how we are as humans. And on the deadlift, for example, those adaptations or those imbalances are actually going to be beneficial, because one side's going to be stronger than the other in order to support your grip on the bar. It's not something to worry about. How often do you look at someone and their one lat is like bulging out here and the other one's really small because they did mixed grip deadlifts? Never, right? Just make sure that you use an appropriate weight, you start light, progress slowly, and you're not bending your bicep, like flexing your arm when you pull. Just keep the arms straight, flex the triceps, you'll be perfectly fine. Heavy, very heavy weights, world records have been pulled with a mixed grip by guys who are far stronger than me or you. The next one is round back deadlifts. People love to talk about this one, how you shouldn't round your back when you deadlift. And I've got a whole video on this topic that you can go and watch. But in short, we don't even have any evidence to say that spinal flexion is dangerous when you deadlift. Not only that, we have a bunch of evidence that says the spine flexes when you deadlift, whether you like it or not. We have studies where the researchers will tell people, do the deadlift, we're going to put these markers on your spine, and do not flex your back. Whatever you do, don't flex your spine. And they still flex their spine because you can't help it. Your spine flexes, rotates, extends, goes through varying degrees of range of motion every time that you do the deadlift, and you can't help it. Is this to say that you should deadlift with a rounded back? Probably not with excessive flexion, just because it's not the most efficient. It's going to be harder to lock out, because if you're deadlifting with loads of spinal flexion, when you get to the top, it's quite hard to go from flexion to extension. So you probably don't want to do it intentionally, but it's not to say that that position is dangerous. Now, there's a couple others, like people love to talk about like locking the knees out on the leg press and stuff like that. And that one's pretty funny to me, because if you tell someone like stand up, what happens? Your knees lock out and they're under load. They don't freak out, but when they do it on a leg press, for some reason they really panic. And yes, the weight is heavier, but again, if you've built up to that and you've adapted to it over time, what's the problem? Your body is way more resilient than you make it out to be. And I think people get stuck in this mindset for some reason when it comes to the gym, that the body is really fragile. You don't tend to see it in other sports like boxing, other combat sports, rugby, American football and stuff like that. It seems like the athletes are really like, they're really resilient mentally. They don't get so scared by injuries. But when it comes to the gym, there seems to be this concept that we're really fragile and we can get hurt really easily. But even the data doesn't support that. The injury risk during resistance training is so low compared to other sports. So I'm not really sure where it's came from. And I'm hoping in this video I can kind of convince you that a lot of these exercises are safe. And if you take anything from this video, as long as you start light, you progress at an appropriate rate, you dose things appropriately, you're not going to get hurt in the gym very often. It's when you start far too heavy far too soon and expose yourself to ranges of motion that you've never been in before. Like if I went and played a game of basketball and I was suddenly jumping, twisting, rotating, yeah, I might snap a ligament or mess my shit up, but that's because it's just a new movement that I haven't yet adapted to. It's not because basketball is dangerous. Hopefully that makes sense. So, like I said before, consider this fact. If you were to do any of these exercises that we discussed with a very light weight or like the empty barbell or something, would they hurt you? Probably not. So that kind of reinforces that weight is part of this formula as well. So if we start light, progress at an appropriate rate, you're going to be fine. So if I'm saying that these exercises aren't bad, does that mean that we should just kind of ignore exercise selection and we should just do any movement regardless of their kind of potential to injure us? And no, exercise selection is very important. We want to choose exercises that suit us as an individual, exercises that we tolerate well, they don't hurt us easily, they're relatively pain-free, stable, and they match up with our goals. And yes, certain exercises are going to be more beneficial versus others for certain people. If you're a powerlifter and you want to get really strong at the squat, bench, and deadlift, probably wouldn't do Bosu ball squats on a single leg, for example. There's not many contexts I can think of that they're going to be a good exercise. But they might be in certain rehab purposes for the right person. So again, they're probably not a bad exercise. Now, you need to figure this out through experimentation. Which exercises suit you, which ones don't cause you too much pain, and you can make progress on, you can feel the target muscle, and they transfer over to your main lifts. However, I will say that a lot of you are doing yourself a disservice by cutting out a lot of these bad exercises. And what ends up happening is when you start cutting out a bunch of movements, so you remove preacher curls, you remove round back deadlifts, you remove the RDL because it taxes your lower back, you remove hack squats because they hurt your knees, you end up really like closing down on your pool of available exercises. And that does come with consequences, because We know that in order to develop long-term as an athlete and for long-term strength development, we want to develop a broad base of motor skills. We want to train a wide variety of patterns because it improves our ability to motor learn and to learn new skills. It also builds up resilience in potential positions of weakness, and it can reduce overuse injury risk, and it just makes training more fun. Like, we don't want to just be training a group of like 3-4 exercises. We want a broad base. We want to be able to cycle through a variety of different exercises, get strong in loads of different positions, expose our joints to loads of different range of motions. So we don't want to close down on that pool and become like a really one-dimensional lifter. And that happens to a lot of you who you end up only squatting, benching, deadlifting, and then you wonder why you're really restricted, really tight, you're really beat up all the time, you got knee pain, back pain, and you start to hate your training. So if you take anything from this video, there are no bad exercises in the gym. There are more or less effective exercises for different goals, different individuals, but the most important consideration is that you start light, you dose things appropriately, and then you progress at an appropriate rate. Don't be that idiot who goes in the gym, does a preacher curl, grabs the 40-kilo dumbbells, starts doing them with that like really high velocity, really shitty technique, and then you hurt yourself. Obviously, it would be the same in any other sport. Do you think if I jumped in the ring with, I don't know, Anthony Joshua on my first day, he knocks me out, and then I go and tell everyone, oh, like, boxing's bad, that's a bad exercise, or that's probably a bad example to be fair, because boxing actually is a little bit dangerous. Say like the basketball example. So I go play a game of basketball and I've never played before. I snap my ACL in my knee, and then I'm like, basketball's bad, no one should do that. That's the same argument that some of you guys are making with like preacher curls, RDLs, and stuff like that, right? So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. If you take anything from it, I don't think there are bad exercises, but you do need to find through trial and error exercises that are most appropriate for you as an individual, and then the most important part is that you dose them appropriately. Start light, progress them slowly, and you'll be perfectly fine. And hopefully this video has reassured you that your body isn't made of glass. It can adapt to a wide variety of positions and ranges of motion and stuff like that. To use myself as an example, I had quite a few back injuries from the deadlift. Every time I flexed my spine under a really heavy weight, I would get a back tweak. So my coach had me train spinal flexion. I do tempo Jefferson curls, and because of doing those, I've built some strength in a vulnerable position, built some resilience there, and I no longer fear spinal flexion so much. So now I get injured less in the deadlift now, and I'm able to train more productively. Whereas some of you might instead just say, spinal flexion is bad, I'm going to avoid it at all costs. But when you do that, you kind of build up this fear avoidance in your mind where you never then expose yourself to spinal flexion, and if it ever happens in your daily life, like picking up a box or something, you get hurt because you've never been exposed to that position. So yeah, hopefully this kind of reassures you that you are actually fragile, you're not made of glass, and you can adapt and get stronger. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions on kind of exercise selection, injury risk, and stuff like that, post them in the comment section down below. If you want a free program to run that kind of considers a lot of these things and gives you some freedom in exercise selection, go and follow that one. Make sure you subscribe for future strength training videos, and until next time, I'll catch you in the next video.